If somebody asks you to explain what Bitcoin is and how it works, could you do it? Most can't, even though "what is Bitcoin" is the third most popular phrase currently searched on Google. So, what I want to do for you in this video is explain exactly what Bitcoin is, why it was created, and how the technology works that runs on it. If you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, a periodontist that's here to teach you about becoming wealthy via passive income. I've put together a free guide that you can download with the link below this video. Before we get into Bitcoin, let's first talk about money. Exactly what is money? Let me ask you a question. Do you really understand what money is and how it works? Have you ever pulled cash out of your wallet and before you use it to buy something, acknowledge that you knew what was really going on behind the transaction? So, what is money? When I perform treatment on a patient, these people, they pay our practice money in exchange for the services that we give to them. And the more value that we can provide to our patients, the more money typically that can be asked for. If our customer service is fantastic and we treat patients like they should be treated, then that's more valuable versus an office with poor customer service that actually herds patients in like cattle. Think about Walt Disney World. Think about their theme parks. What are they able to do? They're able to charge their guests versus other theme parks. What's the difference? Well, really, there's no comparison, right? If you've been to Walt Disney World, you know the amount of money that they charge. And there's no comparison due to the amount of massive amount of value they're able to provide you and me and other guests versus if we were to spend the day at Six Flags. Now, once we receive money from a patient, I can turn around and I can use it to get something of value from someone else in the future. Now, throughout history, value has taken many forms to represent money, such as tulips, animals, and one you're probably familiar with, gold, gold bars. That's a perfect example of how we went from trusting something, gold bars to represent money, and a store of value to trusting someone instead. Think about it. If you're trying to buy something and you have to lug around a bunch of heavy gold bars, how convenient is that? So, because of that, the switch was actually made. Instead of using gold bars, we started using paper money instead. Now, in this situation, you'd give your money to a bank or you give your money to a government, and in return, they give you some sort of certificate of proof. So let's say that they took a look at your gold bar and they said it was worth 500 bucks. Then at that point, you would get bills in that amount to represent the $500. Something else that makes using paper money nice is that it can be divided into smaller pieces of paper. Now, instead of you having to go and shave off some of your gold bar when you wanted coffee from, let's say, Starbucks, you could use these bills that have different amounts or different denominations to purchase your latte instead. Unless, of course, you follow David Bach's rules in his book, The Latte Factor, and you would forego that latte and save the money instead. Yeah, right. Now, this movement from using gold to paper money became more popular due to the convenience factor. Then, in 1971, President Nixon announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed value. So he completely abandoned what's called the gold standard. What this means now is that we continue to buy stuff and we continue to trade paper with receipts that are backed by the government's promise. Now, this process of we the people trusting a government backed currency is how fiat money was created. So, the value of today's money actually comes from a legal status given to it by a central authority, in this case, our government. Now, today, our trust model has changed from trusting something, gold bars, to trusting someone, the government. Now, there's two main drawbacks when it comes to fiat money. The first one is it's centralized. The government or the central bank is the central authority that is in control of issuing currency. And then here's the big one, it's not limited by quantity. We've been seeing this firsthand as the government can literally print as much money as they want and whenever they want to inflate the money supply. This flooding of the market, so to speak, causes your hard-earned dollars to be worth less, which makes the purchasing power of it less too. You'll now need more money to buy something that actually used to cost less. Now that we've gone from using gold to paper money, it only makes sense to make it even more convenient for us and move to digital money. Think about the day-to-day transactions that you make. Now, if I were a betting man, I'd wager that you mainly use digital money such as credit cards, debit cards, PayPal, Venmo, or some other forms of digital money. Am I right? Now, have you ever stopped to think about how that process works? How actually using a credit card to, let's say, buy a book on Amazon, which then has to eventually get paid by the money in your bank account. Have you ever thought about how that process actually works? Now, why couldn't you take one of the files that simply just represents a dollar on your computer and just copy it and make more money? Well, that's what's called the double spend problem, or the risk that a digital currency can actually be spent twice. Currently, the solutions that banks use to help counter this is that they actually have ledgers on their computers, which basically keeps track of who owns what in each account. Now, when you log into your bank app and you actually look down and you see what's in your account, then you're trusting the bank's ledger to keep this accurate. As you can imagine, whenever you give anyone control over the supply of money, you are giving them a lot of power. You remember what happened during the Wells Fargo scandal, where actually employees secretly created millions and millions of unauthorized accounts in order to inflate the bank's revenue stream without even their customers knowing about it for years. And what happened was these customers, they started looking and they realized that, something was wrong because they were getting charged fees and receiving unexpected lines of credit. As you can imagine, Wells Fargo lost a lot of money. Plus, they also lost their customers' trust because this happened actually because, again, Wells Fargo, they were in a position that gave them extreme power. But things started to change back in October 2008 when someone that went by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a white paper about a peer to peer electronic cash system that would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution, thus solving the double spend problem. This system eventually became the system of the most popular decentralized currency today, known as Bitcoin. So, exactly what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin may seem like a difficult concept to understand, yet it's actually much simpler than you think when you actually describe it using analogies. Now, Jesus taught in analogies, so obviously they work, right? So think about if you were to shake somebody's hand. And in order to do so, you'd have to be actually within arm's length, right? Now, what if the only way that to do this by shaking another person's hand, who then had to turn around and shake another person's hand? Well, that doesn't make sense, right? That's essentially how banks and our traditional financial systems work. When you purchase groceries or with your credit card, your bank is actually taking money from your account, giving it to the grocery store for you, and then charging you for it. This works the same way for checks, credit cards, debit cards, and any other exchange of money. This entire process is so ingrained in our society and the way that we actually think about money that it seems completely normal for the most part. But when you think about it, the only person that has anything to gain is who in this arrangement? The bank. They make a profit from controlling, storing, and then making loans off of our deposits. And then they tell us that it's safer storing it there than anywhere else. And they also tell us that, you know what, we're not capable of managing our own wealth without their services. Now you understand how our modern financial system works. So, what about Bitcoin? Now, Bitcoin again is, instead of you shaking somebody's hand who has to shake somebody else's hand, Bitcoin is like shaking someone's hand directly, except with value exchange. The best part is you don't even have to be arm's length away to do it. Using Bitcoin, you can send and receive value to anyone around the world at any time. Bitcoin is also a transparent ledger that actually lacks a central authority. Now let's go back to our bank example. The bank basically manages its own ledger of balances and transactions, but this ledger is not transparent. Well, why is that? Because it's actually stored on the bank's computer. You don't have access to this ledger, and only the bank does. They're the only ones that have control over it. Bitcoin, on the other hand, it's a Bitcoin is a transparent ledger. And what this means is that at any point in time, I can take a look into the ledger and I can see all the transactions and all the balances that are taking place. The only thing that you can't figure out is who actually owns these balances and who's behind each transaction. Everything is open and trackable, but you still can't tell who's sending what to whom. When you access a Bitcoin ledger, you'll be able to see the history of a certain Bitcoin address that then sends a certain amount of Bitcoin to another Bitcoin address. But again, no names are provided, but you can see the actual transaction was made. Bitcoin is also decentralized. Unlike the banking system, there's no one computer that actually holds the ledger with Bitcoin. Each computer that actually participates in the system is also keeping a copy of the ledger, which is actually known as the blockchain. When you think about how this is set up versus the bank's computer system, using the blockchain is so much more secure. Now, if somebody wanted to hack into the ledger, they would have to take down tens of thousands of computers all over the world, which are actually keeping a copy of this ledger, and they're constantly updating it. Another feature about Bitcoin is it's like most money today. It's digital. So Bitcoin is digital money. And I think the name Bitcoin, when you first hear about it, it initially throws people off because they think Bitcoin, they think it's actually like a physical coin that can actually be traded. But there are no physical coins, there are only rows of transactions and balances. If you own Bitcoin, it means that you own the right to access a specific Bitcoin address record in the ledger and send funds from it to a different address. So, why in the world is Bitcoin so popular? Think about it. This is the first time that we've ever been presented with the alternate money that's not controlled by the bank and it's not controlled by the government. Now, if you're an old timer like me, you're going to understand this analogy. I currently have two teenagers, and whenever they've complained about having to do homework or having to do some sort of paper or anything like that, I remind them how it used to be when their dad was growing up before the internet. You remember those days? The pre-internet, or better yet, the pre-cell phone days. Now I tell my boys that back then the only way that I could get information was just a handful of sources, including we had like one of those Britannica encyclopedia collections on our mantle, uh, newspapers, or the library. That was it. But now, thanks to the internet, just about any type of information is decentralized that also allows you to communicate with people literally all over the world. And you can literally get education, information, and communicate with anybody around the world at any time. So think of Bitcoin as the internet of money that offers a decentralized solution to money. So Bitcoin is the internet of money. It's open to everybody. Now, here's some of the advantages it has over the current system. Number one, you have control. Bitcoin gives you complete control over your money and allows only you to access it. The bank or government can't decide to freeze your account or go after your holdings. Number two, it actually cuts out the middleman. Bitcoin also cuts out the middleman from the process of actually transferring money. This makes Bitcoin cheaper to use than the transitional wire transfers or money orders. Number three, Bitcoin is open to all. Bitcoin opens up digital commerce to 2.5 billion people all over the world who actually don't have access to the current banking system because of either where they live or actually the society that they've been born into. For these people, all they need is a cell phone, and then they can start trading with Bitcoin simply with the click of a button without having to use a bank. Now, whether you realize it or not, there are actually more and more companies accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency for payment. Some of the ones that you may be familiar with are Microsoft. You can actually use Bitcoin to pay for Xbox Live, some of the Microsoft apps, games, and other digital content. PayPal. PayPal customers, they can actually use digital currency at any merchant that accepts PayPal payments. Starbucks. So although you can't actually pay directly for your coffee at the register using Bitcoin, you can actually add funds via the company's app. There's actually a third-party digital wallet application that can help you instantly convert your Bitcoin to dollars for use in its merchants partners, including Starbucks. AT&T actually offers their customers a crypto payment option via BitPay. It's actually a third-party payment gateway whenever you check out. Now, some of the other companies that are also accepting Bitcoin are Home Depot, Whole Foods, and cheapair.com. There's now actually Bitcoin debit cards, there's credit cards, anything like that that allow you to pay for items with your Bitcoin balance. Now, hopefully, this information makes it a little bit more clear about what Bitcoin is. And if you're ready to get started in the cryptocurrency space, I'll actually put a link below this video to my personal favorite sites where I personally purchase my Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency from. I hope this is helpful for you. Take care.